Book Summary. Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood, Belladonna. Blackthorn was no ordinary woman. By day, she managed a small, struggling bookstore. Dusty shelves stacked with novels that smelled of paper and dreams. By night, she carried a secret that weighed heavier with each passing year. She was a witch. Not the kind of witch that folk tales whisper about, with cauldrons bubbling over fire and broomsticks streaking through the skies. No. Belle was the kind of witch whose magic once shimmered like sunlight through stained glass. Delicate, radiant, and full of possibility. But lately her spark had dimmed. She couldn't remember the last time she cast a spell that truly worked. The last time she felt her magic humming in her bones. And as she closed up Lunar books one chilly October evening, exhaustion pressed down on her like an anchor. Little did she know. Her 30th birthday was about to arrive, and with it, a summons that would change her life forever. This is the story of Rewitched, a spellbinding, heartwarming tale of rediscovery, friendship, and finding the magic within. Part 1. The Burnout Witch, Belladonna. Blackthorn had always been told she was destined for greatness. A coven-born witch, raised with traditions, she carried the name of one of the most potent magical plants in the world. But despite her lineage, despite her promise, life had a way of wearing her down. She wasn't failing exactly, but she wasn't thriving either. Her bookstore, Lunar Books, was meant to be a sanctuary, an escape from the relentless expectations of magic. She adored the smell of books, the hush of turning pages, the way stories cradled people when reality felt too heavy. But running a small business was no easy task, especially with bills piling up, rent creeping higher, and her toxic boss at her day job making every morning feel like wading through quicksand. Yes, Belle was magic didn't stop her from dragging herself home with aching feet and an exhausted heart. Magic, for Belle, had become something distant. A childhood friend she no longer had time to call. And the truth was painful. She hadn't just misplaced her spark. She feared she might have lost it entirely. Her friends noticed. They tried to nudge her gently back toward her craft, reminding her of rituals, of moonlit nights when she used to laugh with abandon, her palms glowing with energy. But Belle only smiled, waved them off, and buried herself deeper in her work. Until the day everything shifted. Part 2. The summons on the morning of her 30th birthday, Belle awoke to find an envelope waiting at her door. It wasn't delivered by post, nor slipped beneath the crack by a careless hand. The envelope shimmered faintly, as though written with starlight itself. The seal of her coven glared back at her. Her breath caught. She knew what it meant before she even broke the wax. A summons. The coven rarely called upon witches unless something important was at stake. And for Belle, this was no ordinary request. The letter was clear. She was to undergo a trial, a test of her worthiness as a witch. If she failed, she would lose her magic. Forever. The words pulsed in her mind, louder than the traffic outside, louder than her own heartbeat. She had 31 days, the entire month of October to prove herself. Fear crawled into her chest, sharp and suffocating. She hadn't worked with her magic in so long. What if it was gone? What if she was nothing more than a woman with a name too heavy for her shoulders? And then there was the other problem. A watchman. The coven was assigning someone to oversee her progress, to ensure she didn't stray or falter. The thought of a stranger observing her every move made Belle's skin prickle with irritation. She valued her independence, her privacy. But the coven had spoken. October would not be spent in quiet shelves and soft pages. October would be fire, trial, and revelation. Part 3. The Watchman and the Mentor. The watchman arrived in the evening wind. His name was whispered before he even stepped into the bookstore. A figure cloaked in authority, his very presence seemed to hum with disciplined power. Belle bristled the moment their eyes met. He was infuriatingly calm, precise, the kind of man who measured his words like potions. His duty was simple: to protect her, to guide her if necessary, but most of all, to judge her progress. She wanted to hate him. She nearly succeeded. But his steady gaze carried something unexpected, an unspoken belief that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as powerless as she feared. And then there was her mentor. Not the sort of mentor one imagines in epic tales, cloaked in wisdom and mystery. No, Belle's mentor was unlikely, eccentric, and occasionally exasperating. But through lessons, half riddles, half laughter, Belle began to feel small flickers of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The women in her life rallied too. Friends who reminded her of the strength and community, who stood at her side during moonlit rituals, who pressed warm mugs of tea into her trembling hands and told her she wasn't alone. Piece by piece, day by day, Belle began to rediscover fragments of herself. But the clock was ticking. Part 4. October Trials. The trials were not written on scrolls or dictated by rules. No two witches faced the same path. For Belle, the trials revealed themselves in moments of confrontation, both magical and personal. One day, it was a spell gone awry, candles flaring too high, shadows twisting in defiance. Another day, it was her boss, hurling cruel words that made her doubt every choice she'd ever made. Sometimes the greatest trial was simply finding the strength to rise from bed, to believe that she was still capable of something extraordinary. Each failure felt devastating, each success fleeting. But slowly the balance tipped. The watchman, once only a thorn in her side, began to see her resilience. And though his words remained measured, Belle caught glimpses of something softer beneath his armor, a quiet respect, perhaps even admiration. Her mentor pushed harder. Her friends held her tighter. And within Belle, the embers of her magic began to glow again. October was not kind, but it was honest. It peeled back every layer she had hidden behind, the exhaustion, the fear, the doubt, and revealed the truth. Belle had never lost her magic. She had only stopped believing she deserved it. Part 5. The Choice. As Samhain approached, the final night of October, the coven gathered. Candles burned low, flames dancing in circles, shadows watching from the edges of the room. Belle stood before them, the watchman at her side, her mentor behind her, her friends beyond the firelight. This was it. The end of the trial. She was asked to prove herself, not with grand gestures or explosive displays of power, but with authenticity. To show not just that she could wield magic, but that she understood its weight, its purpose, its heart. Belle closed her eyes. For a moment, silence pressed against her. And then she reached inward, into that wellspring she had long ignored. Her magic rose to meet her, not as a storm, but as a steady flame, warm, constant, unbreakable. She had not lost it. She had only forgotten how to trust it. When she opened her eyes, the coven saw her not as a failed witch, but as one reborn. In the days that followed, life did not suddenly become perfect. The bills still came. Her boss was still difficult. The shelves at Lunar Books still demanded dusting. But something inside Belle had shifted. She no longer carried the weight of failure. She carried fire. Her friendships deepened. Her laughter returned. The watchman, still infuriating, still steady, remained by her side, not out of duty, but by choice. And her mentor, delighted by her growth, reminded her that magic was never about perfection. It was about persistence, about presence, about heart. Most of all, Belle learned that the truest spells are not whispered into the night or drawn in circles of salt. They are lived in kindness, in courage, in the refusal to give up even when everything feels lost. Rewitched is more than a tale of witches and covens. It is a reminder for all of us who have ever felt burned out, who have doubted our worth, who have ever believed our spark was gone. The magic, the story tells us, was never truly lost. It was waiting for us to believe again. And as October's final leaves drifted past the windows of Lunar Books, Belladonna Blackthorn smiled, for she was not only a witch, not only a keeper of stories. She was proof that even in the darkest moments, light can be rekindled. And magic will always find its way home.